Okay, here we have a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind coming from the port side, and I've disabled my rudder function and I'm using the pedals only to steer the nose wheel. We're going to fly in this crosswind and we're going to take off and land using 3 separate methods, using only our elevator and ailerons. Here's the first method of takeoff. Straight down the runway and then dip a wing as we take off to hold ourselves straight with the runway. Any crabbing that occurs is a natural result of the dipped wing and alternate use of the elevator with the ailerons. We can hold a pretty straight aspect down the runway. Okay, then we're going to turn out of that. As we get to plane turn, we're using the dihedral and the wind blowing against the wing to turn it, actually. And as we get to plane turn, then we're going to dip that windward wing to hold our path more or less straight in the wind. Now bear in mind, with the weight and power of this plane, that 10-mile-an-hour wind would be like a maybe 20-30 mile-an-hour wind on a heavier aircraft, say a metal Cessna high wing or something like that. And we've even got more lift than that Cessna has, so our scale referencing has nearly doubled at that point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in upwind and we're going to allow the wind to carry us onto the runway. There again, we're not crabbing, we're not using our rudder for any kind of crabbing, but we're allowing the wind to fly us onto the runway. We're lined up, reducing our speed and allowing ourselves to be carried. Now we're going to dip our wing, set the plane down nicely, and now we're on our nose wheel steering. And we'll go ahead and we'll turn around and we'll go back up to the head of the runway again. It's an old discussion between pilots whether or not the rudder is actually necessary. And a lot of us maintain that it's not, that everything can be done by controlling angle of attack. And that way the rudder basically becomes just a crutch from the FAA. Okay, we're going to take off again, dipping our wing into the crosswind. And now we'll turn off in the opposite direction. Again, allowing the wind to push us and help us complete our turn. The whole key to angle of attack is allowing ambient wind and ambient wind cell, or resident wind and resident wind cell that you're traveling in, to help fly the aircraft instead of fighting it. With a rudder you fight it. You're always in combat with the air. With ailerons and elevator, you're flying in concert with it. This time we're going to approach by undershooting and approach the runway at a lower angle with reference to the runway, kind of a diagonal. We're flying basically into the wind. You can watch the little indicator on the nose of the plane there. And then we'll allow the wind this time to catch us as we hit the runway and pull us straight down the runway. And then once again, once we touch down, we dip our wing into the wind, our left wing into the wind, and then steer with the nose wheel. Basically what it's trying to do is the wind is trying to push your vertical stabilizer away from it, thereby turning your aircraft. And you can use that. Now here we'll go ahead and we'll turn around again. We're going to come back. This time we're going to do a straight on approach. This would normally be where the rudder pilots, as opposed to the flyers, are going to be using their rudder to crab the plane down the runway. Instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to use our ailerons and our elevator, and we'll allow the wind to do any crabbing necessary, and we won't touch the rudder. Once we touch down, then we'll steer it on the runway with the nose wheel, keeping kind of an appreciative angle on that windward wing again to hold the plane down so it doesn't get blown over. If you're going to have a problem with wind, you will have it in an ultralight, especially flying a straight 2-axis. If indeed a 3-axis is that necessary. But it really isn't, because you see, birds use 2-axis. There's no rudder. There's no vertical stabilizer on a bird. They have ailerons and a method to control their angle of attack, which we call the elevator. Their speed is the beat of their wings. Ours is our motor, or our lessened angle of attack. Here we come in again. Straight down the throat of the runway. Just dipping that wing, as we need to, into the ambient wind cell. Now here we go. We'll touch down and keep that wing low and steer the plane down the runway. And that's really about all there is to it. You don't pilot the plane, you fly the plane. The plane is you. You are living within the body of that plane, just like the intellect of a bird lives within the body of the bird. Forget what you know about the ground. It will do you no good in the air. The ground is the ground, and your reaction to stimuli on the ground is a lot of times harmful, in fact completely opposite to your reaction to stimuli in the air. A lot of pilots die by pulling up on that stick thinking that that's going to pull their nose up. Well, all it does is stall the wing, increase their problem, and they crash anyway. So, what can I tell you? Anyway, thanks for taking a look.